Hello and welcome to this short how-to video on making some fencing for your model railway layout. Obviously commercial fencing is available. I find it a little bit expensive for what it is, plus it's quite difficult to get it to match my particular layout because it only comes in straight sections, so you have to do a fair bit of modifying if you've got curves and bends and other such things on the layout. So what I tend to use, or what I've discovered I can use, is this tape, which is used for joining plasterboards to give a nice seam, which once it's plastered over doesn't actually show. Some coffee stirrers, cocktail sticks, and some glue. And using this, you can actually make fences like this, and like this. So I'll show you how we go about doing it. So you can get this tape from any sort of woodworking tools supply companies, DIY shops, and it's not a bad price. You get quite a lot of this. It is adhesive on one side. It's not a particularly strong adhesive. It's just really just keeps it in place long enough on the plasterboard so that you can skim it. It will stick to itself, but it won't stay stuck. Now, if you're painting the finished fence with acrylic, then that will help to keep it together. But if you're not, if you're going to just use it without painting it, then you probably will need to apply a solution, diluted solution of PVA glue, just so it stays stuck together. But so what we'll do is I'll show you how I make the first bit of section first bit of fence we're going to make is one like this. Now you'll notice that's curved. I'll talk to you about that a little bit later on as to how we get that curve. But let's just make a straight section of fencing using this and two coffee stirrers. Okay. So basically what you do is you can measure off, just use the coffee stirrer as a guide. So that's the length we want. I'll just cut that to length. Obviously be very careful when cutting things. So that's the right length, and what we'll do now is we will now fold it in half so that the edges butt up nicely and it's all nice and straight, and there you go. And as I say, it will stay stuck together but not for long. So what I tend to do is I just give it a nice, along the top folded edge, a really nice, and as I say, that should hold together for a while at least until it's painted. So that's our length of fence. Obviously, if you're gonna, you can make longer sections. I'm just showing you how I've made my sections for use on my layout, because I've got a bridge, a raised section on with girder bridges and a raised surface. So I've got curves which I need to fence off, and I found this was the best method. So I've placed one coffee stirrer there on one side, and this is where we use the glue. You don't need a lot, so we just run a seam of glue just down the coffee stirrer, and as you can see, don't need a lot at all, just right down the seam like that. Okay, and then we get the other coffee stirrer and we sandwich the bottom of the tape between the two. Make sure that's all nice, so you can squeeze that together. And that's not bad actually. I'm not getting a lot of excess glue coming out, so that's good. You just wipe off any excess that you've got and just pinch it together. So once that's together, what I do now is I get a few clamps and that's it. And we just let that cure, and then once it's cured, you can paint it. So in true how-to video style, here's one I prepared earlier, and that's the finished article, and that's cured and ready for painting. Now, I showed you one earlier which was curved, and the reason I've got curved sections is that I've got curved bits of track on this raised level, and obviously I want the fencing to follow the contour of the track. Now the way you can bend these, you can either bend the coffee stirrers before or after you've made the fencing. I actually bent that with everything glued together, and it didn't dissolve. The glue didn't dissolve. It bent fine. The way you do it, you just soak it in warm water for a while. The coffee stirrers will absorb the water and they'll make it, you'll be able to bend them. Now obviously you can't bend them too much, otherwise they'll snap, but you can actually get certainly a first radius curve bend on them, and you just need to soak them. And I found that the glue did not dissolve, it didn't come unstuck, and it was fine. Now I'd said to you that the tape won't stay stuck together very long on its own, and what will happen is if you just leave it like plain unpainted, you'll notice after time the top edge will start to come apart, so you'll get like and there'll be a sort of, it will just start to peel apart. If you're going to paint it, it shouldn't be a problem. Just pinch the top together and then paint it. I use acrylic paints and they work fine. I do have to water them down a bit, not totally diluted. It's not a wash. It's still, there's still a lot of paint in the mixture, but it's not straight out the tube. And that's kind of the effect I got using acrylic paint. Now that's that sort of fence section. The other sort of fence section is this, and I use this on my model railway layout for fencing between sidings on sort of grassy sections, and believe it or not, that paint is actually watercolor. It's several coats of watercolor, which I was just experimenting with at the time. It seemed to work, but you do have to go over it lots and lots and lots, obviously, and it's quite a thick mixture of watercolor. But as I said, that was just an experiment, and I quite like the way it turned out because it just looks like a brown wooden fence. Now the way you make this, you've probably guessed already, is using the cocktail sticks. And what we'll do is we'll just take a little section of tape, cut that off, and again fold it over in half. Please excuse the plaster on this finger. I had an unfortunate encounter with a hot glue gun or rather the hot glue from a hot glue gun. So a word of warning to those of you who use hot glue guns, just make sure you keep your fingers away from the glue, because it does keep its heat for a while. So that's my little bit of fence there, folded over, and all you do is just literally thread the cocktail stick through, in and out, through each line of tape. Not sure how you can see that okay. And then just go through. Doesn't matter if you miss one, you don't have to be totally accurate. You're just really trying to make sure that it's held at one end. Now how far you go through is depending on how deep you want to plant the pointy end of the stick in your layout. I found that one's probably about right. And then what we do is we just cut off the end of the... I would normally use a pair of side snips to do that, but you can just use scissors. And then your other half of your cocktail stick, you can put that in the other end. And depending on the length of the fence, you'll be putting more cocktail sticks in between. And again, you can paint this or leave it, if you want to leave it as a sort of roadworks type of fence. Made a bit of a mess of this end, but gives you the basic idea. Again, if you make a mess, in fact I have made a mess, let's start again. Pull that out, chop off the end I've just ruined. Let's get a nice clean edge. And we'll start that again. So going in the top, going through, threading through, threadle through, threadle through, threadle through, and threadle through, and there we go. And again, put it through as far as you want, chop off the end, and there's your fence ready to go in. Obviously the one I made, the one I showed you earlier, is much longer, and I'll show you pictures of the both sorts of fence that I made, that are used on my layout in this video. So there you have it. I hope that's of use to you. As I say, I'd been looking at fencing for my layout for a while, and I was looking at what you can buy, and then I suddenly had an epiphany. I was literally in a DIY shop looking for something else, and they had a reel of this on the display stand next to the till, and it just struck me that it looked like fencing. So I bought it and just tried it out, and it works a treat. As I say, you can make higher fencing if you want, simply by sticking, two halves together. So you can make higher fences if you want. It doesn't have to be, it's not just folding in half. You can actually make higher fencing. And again, using the cocktail stick method. But be aware that the top will need to be, if you're not painting it, the top will need to be glued, because it will slowly start to peel apart. But there you have it. So I hope you find that of use, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching.